People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees, they don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again, and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook. I'm here each week with Charisse as we have a little fun as we talk through some of the issues that you're probably worried about when it comes to your retirement. You're coming up on this, and you're saying, I wonder if I'm ready. I wonder if I've saved enough. I wonder if I've done enough. And how are you going to know unless you come in and we do the math? We talk about that all the time. Or maybe you're in retirement and you're finding, I wish I had a little bit more money to spend. Well, maybe we can help you with that too. It's all a matter of sitting down with Charisse and doing the math. Charisse, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I have a great farmer's tan.
So do I.
This golf scramble will do it to you.
Yeah, exactly. My grandchildren call me Chief Whitefoot because I have white feet, I have tanned legs, I have tan arms and neck and face, and the rest of me is all white. So when I get into the pool, I got a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your first annual golf event for the Grilled Cheese Foundation. We had a great time, had a lot of help, and I just want to say thanks to all our volunteers and all our golfers and Ocala Country Club. It really was a great day, Charisse.
Yeah, the Country Club of Ocala did a good job and helped make this event really, it just runs smoothly, number one. But we had amazing volunteers, Randy. My director of operations for the Grilled Cheese Foundation, just people follow her. She's like such an amazing leader. Her name's Sandra, and I just love her dearly. Like God definitely brought her to me, and she really helped push this initiative to the Grilled Cheese Foundation because I don't have enough time to do it, right?
Right.
And we had some great, amazing, generous sponsors. We thank you so much. And we had lots of awards. Nobody won the hole-in-one. Nobody won the 20 grand. But I did get closest to the pin.
Yes, you did.
Women and men, we were in that one competition. I got closest to the pin, which was awesome. I've never done that. But I want to tell everyone, like, we raised a lot of money. We raised a lot of money just from this one golf scramble to use 4 of the Go Beyond scholarships. Like, we can sponsor 4 kids going to college this year coming up. Yes. We can also, just by this fundraiser, give away 5 Fresh Start College scholarships. This is another scholarship we offer. And then we can also sponsor another 10 students to help foster their talents and passions between the ages, really the grades of 6th grade to 12th grade. 10 of them right now. And we're still getting more donations right now. So it's just racking up where they can go do dance for 2 days a week. They can go do, karate. If they want to do, golf lessons, or, they need cleats for high school. I mean, we're doing great. And we want to be able to help every child that just needs a little push in life, needs a little motivation. Just let them know that there is a foundation here for them, to give them hope, to know that, they can do the things they want and they don't have to be left behind.
So nice. We had Rhea there, who was one of the recipients of one of the scholarships, and she got up and spoke, and she's just got a wonderful resume. I mean, she's a 19-year-old, 20-year-old girl who's going to go to dentistry. And so she's going to do her first 2 years one place, and then she's going to go someplace else because it's a dental school, and she just seemed like a wonderful young lady, and you feel good when you see somebody like that who's deserving. And so if you want to go to our website, zinniawealth.com, you can look through there and you'll see about the Grilled Cheese Foundation. If you would like to still make a donation, it is available right there. Or make sure you're with us next year because second annual will be even bigger. So we're looking forward to it.
Yes.
All right. Well, what we do here is to try to help you when it comes to your retirement. And there's all sorts of things out there that you worry about. And We hit those headlines to see if we can make sense of them. And now and again, you'll hear somebody saying the end of the world is coming when it comes to the stock market. Well, one of those guys who regularly says that is on his soapbox again. His name is Harry Dent, and he's looking at all these big stocks, these magnificent 7 that are in the tech sector, and he says, this is a bubble, it's going to pop, and it's not going to be good.
This bubble's been going 14 years instead of most bubbles 5 to 6. It's been stretched higher, longer, so you'd have to expect a bigger crash than we got in 2008 to 9. This thing has got to blow. It's showing signs of topping here, but we've got to see a crash of about 40%. I can tell you there has not been one bubble, and this is far larger and longer, one major bubble in history that has not ended badly, period.
Be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Randy, Harry Dent, for the last, I think, 30 years, he's always that fear monger out there, the naysayer. And eventually these fear mongers do get it right, right? But he has some value in what he's saying. It's been, almost 14 years since we've had a real crash. 2007, 8, 9 time period. And eventually something's got to give. This balloon, you got some helium in it. It's going in and out and keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger with debt and more problems, more crisis, more spending. And it's got an election and there's so much going on. And eventually this bubble is going to burst. But here's the thing. We don't know when, right? Nobody can predict it because what if we win another 5 to 7 years, right? That to me is a long shot, but I'm not going to pretend to predict what's going to happen because hope floats sometime, you guys, but eventually the math will break the system, right? Yeah. And, I think the moral of the story here is the tech bubble is a big deal. We saw this tech bubble wreak havoc on portfolios back in 2000, 2001, 2002. That was a 33-month decline. I want all my listeners to think about what they're doing today. Are you about to retire in the next 5 years? And imagine retiring and then us going through another tech bubble where the stock market goes down 3 years in a row.
Wow.
Are you going to go back to work or did you just retire? Are you going to stop spending? Those are all things that do not create a stress-free environment, a stress-free retirement. So we want to make sure you have the right asset allocation and we want to make sure your assets are in the right location, like the right tax location, which is a big part of it. And right now, the tech is carrying the stock market. 60% of our stock market. And do I think Nvidia or Amazon or Apple are going to go out of business? No. Do I think when the market crashes, you're going to lose 50 to 60%? Probably. Do I think it's going to rebound? Yes. How long does it rebound? On average, it takes 4 to 5 years for it to get back to even after it's done bottoming out. This is that roller coaster. These stocks are going to go down, 12 to maybe 33 months like we've seen before. And it's going to take 4 to 5 years to crawl out, most likely. Mm-hmm. If it crawls out over 3 years, I'd be surprised. But again, that's a 5-year period. Or a 7-year period.
You've taught me that there's all these different sectors in the market. There's 11 different sectors. There's healthcare and there's energy. There's all these different places. Technology is one of those sectors. So when you talk about allocation, when you do an analysis of somebody's portfolio, if they're heavily weighted in technology, maybe that's something that you look at and say, let's spread this out a little bit.
I do. So when we do our portfolio analysis, when everybody comes in, I look at all the funds. We're looking at, what are the commissions? What are the fees? What have been the returns? And I look at the sectors. And on average, I would say 8 out of 10 people right now, they come in and I'll see 20% in technology. I'll see 20% in consumer staples. I'll see 20% in financials. And those are some of the heavy hitters. I think there's other sectors that are doing a little better than like financials, et cetera. But those are the ones when the market crashes that we're going to have some of the biggest risks. Like, let's think about cyclicals, buying RVs and refrigerators. When stock markets crash, you're not buying cars and RVs, and you better get out of that sector. That is a rocky sector, and that one sometimes takes the longest to get back. So this is what we look at here at Zinnia Wealth Management when it comes to portfolio management, because a lot of people think they got to have the number one stock or the number one dividend stock but what they really need to focus on is the sector rotation. Mm-hmm. Like what are the top 4 sectors out of 11 right now? And let's hone in on those. And then 6 months to 12 months from now, it might be time to change a couple of those sectors because life has changed. The economy has changed. Things are being spread out differently throughout the economy. Maybe it's interest rates, inflation. Maybe now energy is doing great and there's war and then there's a ceasefire. Then you get out of energy, right? Because then gasoline goes down. So there's so many things to look at. And it's not just about the best stock, because even the best stock this year is not going to be the next best stock next year, right? That historically has been a true statement. Now, if you're with NVIDIA, that's a little different story, right? Because it just keeps going and going and going. And I talk about that stock, because it's one we've been offering for 7 years since it was a $40 a share stock. And when I tell my clients buy more, they look at me like crazy, but they still do it. And that part of their portfolio is looking pretty jazzy right now. But but the clients are like, Sharice, I don't want any losses. I don't want any. I just had somebody come in just the other day and she said, I've been in the stock market for all these years, Sharice. I've saved $4 million. I want to keep my $4 million. I'm like, not one dime in the stock market? Like, I can't even put a few dividend stocks in there. She went, no. And I'm like, oh, it makes my job harder. But we came up with a really clever cash management strategy, and it's sprinkled among numerous assets that don't lose. And so I had to get very creative for this one, because that's a big chunk of money and you want to be diversified. But if there's a will, there's a way. And as an investment advisor, which we are here at Zinnia Wealth Management, we advise on every investment under the sun, and we can even get them, which is great. So sometimes we have certain people who come in and said, hey, I've been in technology. I'm ready to go. I want to button all this up. What do you got? And we got to go find things sometimes, and at times change. We've always said take advantage of opportunity, because when people come into the office, nobody says, I want the jiggliest thing. They're like, I want a 10% return. I don't want advisor fees, and I don't want losses. So I have a tough job, right? And then I kind of share how reality is upon us, and this is what we can do realistically. And the biggest goal, if you're going to be in this tech sector, which I love dearly, of course, make sure if you're living in retirement and living on the dollars that you have saved in those buckets, make sure there's 5 years of income somewhere else you can pull from, so that when the market does derail and the roller coaster ride happens and it goes down, if it goes down 50%, if not higher, or even a little less, you're not pulling and ruining everything that you've been taught over the last 30 to 40 years, because we know when you sell, it's a paper loss. And now you've been doing that for 30, 40 years, and now you're retiring, and now you're going to get emotional. You're not, trying to have these double-digit returns. You're trying to be conservative. You're going to act differently. Most people do, and we act irrationally. We get emotional, it's psychological, and we sell at the wrong time. But if you know where your income's coming from for the first 5 to 10 years, you're going to hold steady. You're going to practice that great behavior you've been taught all of your lives. And so it's got to be in writing. You have got to see it. And if it's not in writing, you don't understand it, then you're not going to have confidence. And you need confidence in a trusted partner when you're in retirement, or you will make some of the biggest mistakes of your life after all the amazing non-mistakes to grow these dollars to get to this day.
Well, Mom always said, don't put all your eggs in one basket, and putting all your eggs in that technology basket, even though it's performing well right now, there's a possibility that might not continue. And Sharice, you bring up a really good point when you say, will NVIDIA go out of business? Microsoft, Apple, Meta, Google, will they go out of business? Probably not. But let me give you 4 companies right now: GE, AT&T, GM, and Sears. In the 70s and 80s, these were the NVIDIAs of the time. And now all 4 of those have been delisted on the Dow. So they're not there anymore. This could happen, certainly. Who knows? That was a long time ago, and it took a long time to get there. Sears was in business for over 100 years and now is not. So these are all things that we have to consider, and certainly things you bring up as you sit down with Sharice and go through your retirement planning. Let's do the portfolio x-ray. We do that for you at no charge. If you've got too much of this, let's even that out. Let's get some allocation in there. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. We'll do that for you at no charge. Give us a look on our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. When you click on that, we'll ask you a little information, and our team will reach out to you. We'll get a date on a calendar. Or you can reach out to us right now and bypass all that and just do it yourself. 833 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680. We'll take a break, come right back with more of Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us at zinniawealth.com or 833-368-3680. Well, if you ask people what their biggest concerns are right now as they go toward retirement, number one, always number one, did I save enough money? Do I have it? I don't want to run out of money. Number two right now is inflation. And even though inflation was up at 9.3% at some point, it came down very quickly, and now we're at 3.3%, which is great. And I don't know if you've noticed, but some of the things are starting to get a little less expensive. I don't know about this, but hotel rooms are down, electronics, new and used cars, appliances, furniture, even airfare. It's all gone down just a little bit. So we're starting to see some of that relief. But here is the best news of all.
The price of Costco's $1.50 hot dog soda combination will remain unchanged. Costco's new CEO dispelling rumors during his first earnings call, saying there are no plans to raise that price. The beloved $1.50 hot dog soda combo has cost the same since 1985, and that is welcome news to inflation-weary customers. If Costco's hot dog deal kept pace with the inflation, it would be nearly $4.50.
Yay for Costco.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? They should. They really should, because people took losses on the gold. Costco's selling gold. That is so silly to me.
That was funny.
I know.
But yay for Costco, our inflation fighter of the day. I love that. But you have to do that, Sharice, because this is a major concern of people is, you know, if I know I can make it on $6,000, $7,000 a month now, in 10 years, it can't be 6, 7. It's probably got to be 8, 9, maybe even 10. That's got to be built into your retirement plan. So what is your biggest inflation fighter as you sit down and build these plans?
Right. So it's building more income, right?
Right.
And turning on switches of these incomes to increase your income through different asset allocations and different asset locations. So, I mean, if we go back to the 80s, Randy, think about what a CD would get you. 18%. And that's because inflation was 14.5%, right? You have interest to fight inflation, and that's how it works. You know, fast forward to today, 2022, when interest rates shift back up, things changed a little bit. It took a little bit before we saw higher interest rates. Went as high as 9. We should have seen CDs as high as 9, but that didn't happen. So the other way, if interest rates aren't matching inflation rates, now they are. Now we're back, I think, to substandard, basically. If inflation's 4 and you're getting 5 in a CD, I'll handle that. But it really beats inflation. So we have to build in an income strategy. And let me go back. What did the great generation do, Randy? Back in the day when they retired, they put 75% of their retirement money when they retired, or whatever money they had saved, into bonds, and 25% in equities, because they knew they needed those equities to keep up with inflation, which is true, right? And today, you can't do that. You can't retire and put 75% of your money in bonds and 25% in equities. You'd get crushed in the bond world. You wouldn't be able to keep up with inflation like the way you used to, right? So this is not your father's, your grandfather's retirement. You have to think differently. And this is why the big professors, finance professors, even at Yale, even say, they scream, the 60-40 portfolio is dead. The bond portion would likely barely beat inflation. And we need that money to work for us. And this is why we really implemented major changes here at Zinnia Wealth Management, because we don't do the 60-40 anymore. We do the 40, 30, 20, 10 strategy, 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%. And sometimes we flip-flop it, or we add another bucket there, because by doing that, it gives us different ways to get different paychecks. And we might turn one on in 5 years, and in 10 years from now, we'll turn on another one. And in 15 years, we'll turn on another one, depending what the needs are. But we want to make sure that when you exit those double doors at your employer's office and you collect your very last paycheck, there is an inflation adjustable income plan tacked to your retirement plan. And if you haven't sat with somebody that actually understands it or talks about it, and you are your own pension manager, it could be very hazardous because a lot of people forget to add that. Like when I do these income plans, they're like, why did my income go from 80,000 to 100,000 in 10 years to, 150,000? I said, because we have to account for inflation. Do you think an Apple cell phone is going to cost the same in 10 years as it does today? Because you probably still want the Apple. You want the next best thing, and the costs get higher and higher. We got to keep up with it because it could be crippling to a portfolio if you don't plan for it. So there's so many pieces of the pie in retirement you have to consider, but it's income planning, it's building raises into your income plan and your retirement so that you always know your checks are coming, right? It's really that simple, but it does take a little bit of work.
Well, one of the ways that you can get income in retirement is with dividend-paying stocks. And that's where we're going to go next. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary discovered that by way of his mom. Listen to this story.
And she'd take a third of her paycheck and put it into bonds and dividend-paying stocks. After she passed away, I became the executive for her estate. And for the first time, I saw a secret account she kept from both of her husbands her whole life, made up of dividend-paying large-cap stocks and corporate credit. Do you have any idea of the performance of that portfolio? She blew away every indice. I was amazed. I started to do some research. Over the last 40 years, over 70% of the market's returns have come from dividends, not capital appreciation. That forever changed my investment philosophy. I'm a dividend guy. I only buy stocks that pay dividends.
Isn't that interesting? So instead of having a stock and having to sell it to get income, you hold the stock and the stock pays you. It's a great way to build income in retirement. How much of that do you use with your retirement planning, Cherise?
Right, a lot of it. So it's part of one of our portfolios. But I don't want everybody to be like, oh, I got to get dividend stock. Oh, there's a 11% dividend stock. There's a 7%. Oh, here's a 3. Why would I get the measly, stinky 3 when I can get 7? So let's talk about some of these rules. The one thing I heard him say, it just dinged in my brain here. He said it was a hidden account she never touched or lived on. So it wasn't in an IRA because she probably would have had to pull it out, right? And she didn't live on it. So yeah, of course, every time a dividend got paid, it bought new shares. Every time you get a new share of stock, you get a new dividend payment when they pay that dividend, right? So she never touched it. So yeah, that if you're never going to touch your money, absolutely. Why would we do anything else? But most people, they want to touch their money. They want to live on their money, Randy. They need it now, not in 30 years. What do they say? You can't be the richest man in the cemetery. I've had to say that to like 3 people so far in the last 6 months because they would have so much money. They're afraid to spend it. They weren't creating this asset allocation the way they needed to. And they went, oh, gosh, you're right. I mean, we really got to focus on the plan, adding some of the dividend stuff, not too much dividend stuff. So I do encourage it in my office to have a dividend portfolio. But so let me give you some pros and cons of dividend stocks. What I like, so this is what you should know when it comes to math. If a stock is paying an average of 3 to 4.5%, those companies, even when there's a big stock market crash across the country, they typically can still afford those 3 and 4.5% dividends. And once in a blue moon, they'll go up. Now, one of the cons to dividend stocks is that company could absolutely lose 30%. Even though it's a dividend stock, maybe it's a blue chip stock, they can still lose 30 and 40% during a market crash. So you got to be able to hold strong. But if that dividend keeps paying, it'll buy those stocks at a lower price. So some real big positives. Some of the negatives of dividend stocks is that some people like, oh, I want a 7% dividend stock and a 11% dividend stock. And those ones have a lot of volatility, right? We see that all the time. Most of them do. And the dividend stock, by the way, it's not guaranteed. They could stop paying dividends, right? So if you're getting a 7 or 8% dividend right now on a stock and you bring it in and I measure it in our quantitative analysis, I'll probably find out that if I compare it to the 2008 crash, it probably will lose 40 to 50%. So are you going to hold it when that happens? Or are you going to stay committed? And some people will say yes, because that dividend is going to pay more, buy more stock. And I'll say, okay, but what if that dividend isn't paid out because it's a 2-year decline in the market and it takes 5 years to get back up? that company better have a really good balance sheet. And anybody who's that risky paying that high of a dividend, you have to be extra careful. So this is why it's good to come in so we can talk about it and then really create a plan. Because I have some 11% paying dividend stocks that I actually really love that I've tracked for over 30 years. So it's just having that conversation and that banter going back and forth just to make sure we are making the right decisions if you're going to manage this yourself, especially.
Well, one of the things that you want to know is how much am I going to get paid in retirement? You got your Social Security, and then what? So you want to know what that is and how it's going to be generated. Dividend-paying stocks are part of the possibilities, part of the program, and we would love to discuss them with you. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website, zinniawealth.com, Zinnia wealth.com. There's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. Just follow the steps there, and our team will reach out to you, or you can reach out to us right now, 833-368-3680. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Roth 401ks. Maybe you have one at work, you're putting money in there. There's some new rules that you need to know about. It truly does affect you this year in taxes. You got to make a decision. We'll tell you what it is coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Ritters at Zinnia Wealth. Online, it's zinniawealth.com. Look for that gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. If it's time to talk about your retirement, get a date on a calendar. Let's talk through it. Let's find out what you're in for. You've been saving all these years. What does that mean for you per month? What's going to happen with Social Security? Are you scared of the stock market? There's a lot going on right now. Election year. All of that is factored in, and let's talk through it. Again, 833-368-3680 or zinniawealth.com. We've talked about 401ks on the show. We've talked about Roths on the show. Have we talked a lot about Roth 401ks on the show? Probably not so much, and there's some new rules out there that you need to know about. If you look at your employer plan and you have a Roth option there, that means that the money that goes into that is taxed first, and then it's put in. But if you have an employer match, maybe you don't know this, it goes in like a regular 401k. It goes in before taxes. So literally, when you take that money out, you'll have to pay the taxes on your employer match. All right, if you're with me so far, there is a new rule that goes into effect. You could be at the end of the year given a form. And on that form, it says, would you like to pay those taxes now or just wait until you take that money out? So, Sharice, we talk about the importance of tax planning. If somebody came to you with that question, should I pay these taxes now or wait? How would you advise them?
It depends on our time horizon and our age and where we're at and how much income we have coming in. But even with all those things you have to consider, I will probably encourage you paying the taxes on the match now, because you are paying the taxes on the seed and not paying the taxes on the harvest as it grows and it blooms and it turns into this beautiful apple tree. And now the taxes are higher. The value has doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. So now you're paying the taxes on the double, triple, and quadruple. Let's say the total match was $100,000 and it doubles in 10 years to 200,000, that match. And then it doubles again in 10 years to 400,000. Would you rather just pay the capital gains and the ordinary income taxes on the match now? If it's only $10,000, it's only going to cost you $400. And the answer is yes. And even if you multiply 400 over 20 years, it's still the better deal, right? Because you're going to have to pay the tax on that growth for the rest of your life, even when you are retired. So even today, I'd rather you pay the taxes on the seed and not the harvest with these matches. So I would implore, if you don't even come see me, and as a financial planner, I always say, make sure you see us. And so we can make sure we're sure. I mean, if you're making $1 million and you just got to buy out a big bonus, maybe that year, that conversation changes a little bit. It really depends. But if you got that big of a bonus, you probably don't have a Roth anyways on it. I yet to have actually seen that, but just saying there's a lot of elements that are built in And I want people to think about that. Rewind the show. Go to my podcast. This will be published here in a couple of days, and rewind the show and listen to that. Taxes on the seed versus the harvest. And that harvest is going to double and triple, maybe even quadruple, depending how long we live. And that tax bill is going to get incredibly higher and higher and higher. And taxes could go higher, higher, and higher. There's a lot that's going to happen over the next 30 to 40 years, right? So do it now.
I think, one of the easy ways to think about this is your credit card. And so we all know, say, for instance, you put $10,000 on a credit card. You buy something that's $10,000. So then you get your first bill, and it says your payment is $80. And you go, well, that's not so bad. So you start paying your $80 every month. Do you know how long it is going to take you to pay off $10,000 at $80 a month at 20% interest? It's like 17 years, and you'll end up paying $20,000 instead of $10,000. Well, it's the same with taxes. You could pay, instead of like on your credit card, you could pay $500 on it, and then you would get it paid off quicker, and you would pay less interest. It's kind of the same concept, Charisse. Pay the taxes now so you don't have to pay them later.
You couldn't have said it any better. And so I'd follow that wisdom, Randy, if that's the easiest way for you all to understand, or some of you to understand how that works. Pay taxes now. Why taxes are lower, that probably is a better strategy.
And then there's another factor that goes into this, too, is that at the end of 2025, which is not that far away, January 1st, 2026, the Trump tax laws will expire, unless we probably have him in the White House again. So there's another reason to sit down and have some tax conversation with Charisse. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. We'll say it many times. Every single show, we'll say it over and over again. A retirement plan isn't really a retirement plan without a tax plan. So we've got to be thinking about that. Give us a look. ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. Click on that gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Let's get a date on a calendar. All right, talking more about your 401ks. We know that you look in there and you've got all these choices. You have to pick a balanced fund or an index fund or a bond fund or whatever it is. And then you'll look in there and there's something in there called a target date fund. You'll recognize it because it has a year after it. It'll say 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040. And the idea is this fund, as you get closer to that date, starts to move your risk down. More bonds, and so less risk. Seems like a good idea. And, the fact that you think, I'm going to retire in 2025, these people get me. They understand me. They know all about me. But the problem is, folks, they don't work really well. If you take a look at, the performance over the last couple of years, they still lose a lot of money when the market goes down. So, Charisse, I read an article in Barron's, and it says, here's the quote, had target date funds never been invented, Vanguard and Fidelity had instead put their customers in balanced funds, they'd be doing significantly better.
Agreed. What
do you think about target date funds?
Yeah. So, there's fees in target date funds, right? Higher fees than you're going to find at Vanguard for sure, and probably Fidelity in that balance fund and funds. And there's a bigger menu. There's more diversification in those balance funds versus target funds. And as you get closer, that time horizon closer to retirement, like you said, Randy, they add more. It's automatic. It's like a robo automatic. Right. We're going to make you more conservative because you're getting closer to retirement. We want to have less risk. They add more bonds and more bonds and more bonds. But if you go alone on this and you don't talk to somebody, if you had a target date retirement fund and you were within 5 years of retiring, that target date fund was one of the worst funds in the country because you would have had probably 60% in bonds. Bonds, especially the target date funds and bonds, lost an average of 15 to 24%. Wow. And it's slowly coming back, right? Yeah. But when interest rates shift again, it's going to happen again. So target date funds aren't what they used to be. And they actually used to be great until, in my opinion, 2022.
Yeah, the bonds.
And honestly, I wouldn't say they were great. They were better than they're going to be. Let's put it that way. So if you're fighting the bond volatility and you're getting closer to retirement, you can't control it. They're just going to do it. You have a small menu when it comes to target retirement date funds. You have like 7 choices and there's fees, and it's super risky or too safe. So it's always one or the other that when we analyze your 401ks, we'll do a report. We're seeing one or the other. So there's got to be a happy medium. Sometimes, Randy, we see people come in and half their portfolio is in 4 different mutual funds and half of it's in this target date fund. And sometimes that's the worst plan. I want you to pick one or the other. And people who become clients that are still working, I'm helping you pick those funds. Our advisors are helping you pick those right funds that are best for you, because you could have 4 mutual funds that will outpace this target retirement date fund and possibly have less risk. And you can get out of some of the risky stuff when you want to in these 401ks and bob and weave, once a year, maybe twice a year, depending on when we sit down, the plan is to be and when you're going to retire. So the goal is we enter retirement. We want less risk, right? We want to pay less fees. And we want to be diversified, and we need that tax plan to make sure that the assets are in the right location. So there's so much that go into it. Don't leave your money in a target retirement date fund if you've retired. It's like the worst strategy known to man in the financial services industry. Find somebody locally that you trust that actually understands what we just said, because there's a lot that goes into it. And maybe your target retirement date fund, maybe you've had it for 20 years. You're like, Charisse, but it's made me so much money. I want you to go back and look at the returns at the end of 2022 and the end of 2023. And I really want you to say, oh yeah, that's a toughie. And some of you are probably saying, I'm still not back to even, because there's a lot that needs to change inside of them. And some of them don't do anything. They just sit there. It's like a buy and hold, right? So if we're going to do that, let's cherry pick and pick some of the mutual funds your employer is offering you, because most of them give you one or the other, or you can use both.
Well, this is the kind of information that comes out of our complimentary retirement consultation. When we do that x-ray, we're going to dive into that 401k of yours and find out what's working and what's not working. And you might look at the market and say, well, the market's up 10%, but I'm only up 7%. What's the deal? And the deal is something like a target date fund might be holding you back. So let's find that, let's fix that, and let's get you ready for retirement. And if there are better choices in that 401k, and Charisse, this is one of the reasons I think it's so important to come to somebody like you before retirement, because you can start to make these adjustments before your retirement date.
Absolutely.
Something simple like a 401k.
Yeah. And on top of that, if you are over 59 and a half and you're still working, maybe you can work to 62 or 65, whatever it might be. Do you know 9 out of 10 employers allow you to do an in-service distribution for a percentage of that 401k or the entire amount, where you can roll it out to a local advisor? And now you go from 10 options or 20 options to 30,000 different options. And now you can really get your plan working now. I mean, it's a no-brainer to have those sit downs and find that person, because you want to start prepping now versus later, right? And then if you start to work on the income plan, boy, if you give us a couple of years before you retire, it makes a world of difference on the plan when you are retired. So again, you can do that with no penalty. You can even keep your 401ks while you're working, roll it over to an IRA, no taxes, no penalty, and then you can still contribute to your 401k. It's a great thing. And I'd say 9 out of 10 companies allow you to do it.
All right. Well, let's sit down and see what it looks like for you. Look, an analysis of your 401k is probably your biggest retirement holding. Let's make sure it's working. And if there's something holding you back, let's make those adjustments. Here's our number. Here's our website, ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. There's a gold box down there in the lower right-hand corner. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's what you click on and follow the steps right there. We'll reach out to you and get a date on a calendar. Or 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680. Well, we hear these crazy numbers all the time of how much you need to retire. BlackRock says 1.8 million. Susie Orman says 3 million. Kevin O'Leary said 5 million the other day. How many people actually have $1 million or more saved for retirement?
Wait, didn't Dave Ramsey say 8 million?
Well, Dave Ramsey said you could take 8% of your money. That was the 8
that's
there.
Even worse.
There's a lot of crazy advice out there.
Yes.
So we're going to give you the numbers coming up next on how many people have actually saved that much. And if you haven't, do you even have a chance at a good retirement? We'll talk about it. Coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. If it's time to talk about your retirement, give us a look right there. We talk about it all the time. Let's do the math on your retirement. Give you a good look at where you are, what you've saved, what does it mean for your retirement, what are you missing, how can we help? 833-368-3680 or again, zinniawealth.com. So for many years, people have said, what do you need for retirement? They said, I need $1 million to retire. Well, how many people actually have saved $1 million? This is according to the Federal Reserve. Only 10% of retirees have saved $1 million.
That is crazy.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Now, last week we had this survey and it said 70% of retirees are happy in the lifestyle. They're doing exactly what they had hoped for. Another time we talked about how much money people actually have per month, and the average in this country is about $6,000 a month. So 90% of retirees do not have the money that the financial media says you need, but 70% of them are very happy. They're doing just fine.
Oh, I know why?
So tell me, Sharice, there's a disconnect, obviously, here. And there are people out there that are just fine on less than $1 million saved. How is that possible?
We see it all the time. And the reason why it's possible is because they have good Social Security checks and they have pension checks also. So between the Social Security and pension checks, that typically covers most of people's bills and some travel and extras, which is really nice. And those people, they work so hard to build the Social Security and put the money and have that pension that they didn't save $1 million, right? Maybe they saved 500, maybe they saved 750 or close to $1 million. And those people who have good Social Security checks and pensions, remember, these are income checks. People love the idea of income checks, Randy, because they don't have to put any work into it, and it shows up every day and is guaranteed not to run out. Social Security, I know some of you are like, are you really sure about that? Maybe for the baby boomers, we're good to go. I do worry about the younger people, but it's all about paychecks. Paychecks make the world go round. And when you retire, people forget to implement that in the plan. So let's say you retire and you have 2 great Social Security checks. You still might not need a pension check. So you might just need a growth strategy. Let's just say 2 people in a home and one of the spouses have a high Social Security. The other one has a smaller Social Security. There's still no pension. When somebody passes away, we lose a Social Security check. Typically, those people, we're trying to make a growth strategy, but we also want to build in a paycheck replacement, right? Replacing your paycheck. So if somebody passes, we lose the smaller Social Security and we get to keep the higher amount. That's the way to always think about Social Security income. But how much of the Social Security check did we actually lose from the other smaller amount that was coming in? And that smaller amount could be actually equivalent to the higher income earner. Maybe the higher income earner, their Social Security check was $3,000 and yours is $2,000. And then one of you pass, and in $2,000, that's a smaller one, basically disappears. That's $24,000 a year plus cost of living and inflation every year. I mean, that creeps up. Where are the dollars saved to replace that $2,000 paycheck when somebody passes away, right? And or let's just say you both have smaller Social Security checks, but we have a very large pension. Does the pension pass 100%? And some households, no, they bought a life insurance policy, which was the worst strategy. You should have just taken 100% of the pension, or at least 100% of the pension passed to the spouse, and or 50 to 75% passes the spouse. So we don't have to manage a $500,000 death benefit or less. And most of those people who did that, Randy, they bought term and they're about to run out. I just saw one the other day. I'm like, oh, somebody did not advise these people right when they first started the strategy. So income makes the world go round. People who have not saved $1 million that have good Social Security and pension checks coming in, they're happy as can be. They're likely never to touch their savings until the RMD phase of life, where they're forced to pull money out of their IRAs. And even then they pay the tax bill and they're still not going to spend it. They're going to gift it, donate it, do other things. Now, $6,000 a month is a good paycheck, Randy, in retirement. And if that's the average people are getting a month, I'm pretty sure not everybody has a great pension. Not everybody has a good Social Security. Some of these people have $6,000 a month. Some of it could be cash rents. You might have some real estate, right? Some of it might be, hey, I left my employer. I put some money into an income annuity and I get a paycheck for that. So that's another way to get a pension replacement, is to build up an income plan inside of an annuity that pays an income stream for life. So that's one strategy, but not everybody needs that. There's so many legs of protection to build in for the surviving spouse and or the income plan for the future that you can get very creative today. And it's better than I've ever seen it historically over the last 40 years. And I am so happy to be living and being a financial planner during this time period, because I have a lot of levers to pull right now, and we can be so diversified and we can make more money than we ever have before with these levers and give more income and buy up this income better than we ever have before. There has not been a better time ever. And so it's an exciting time period. And if you're sitting in the dead 60-40 portfolio, as the Yale professors call it, then you're not using these levers. So you need to come in and talk to us to figure out, what are they? Should we be implementing a few of these strategies and take that 60-40 portfolio strategy and change it to a 40, 30, 20, 10 percentage portfolio strategy, right? So just remember, old school is old school. There's a new school out there. And are you using it?
The lesson here on these stories is you may be much better off than you think. Don't let some of these stories that say you need $3 million to retire, $1.5 million to retire, $5 million to retire, don't let them affect you. Come on in. Let's do the math on your retirement and see what the real numbers for you are. Give us a call, 833-368-3680, or use our website, which is zinniawealth.com. Click on the gold box. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Let's get that date on a calendar, and let's sit down and do the math on your retirement. Just to go along with that, Sharice, I found a list, and this was from a video that I saw, and the person said, here are 5 reasons that you are much better off in retirement than what you think right now. And some of them you've already covered. Number 1, you don't care about the Joneses. You are comfortable in your own skin. You don't have to keep up and buy a new car every 2 years. You are fine. You are living the way you want to. Number 2, you live below your means. You save more than you spend. Number 3, your house is paid off and you have very little debt. Number 4, you have an emergency fund. And number 5, as you said, Sharice, you have Social Security and a pension. So as I said that list, listen and look at yourself in the mirror. Check, 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 check. I'm kind of that person. And when you come in and sit down with Sharice, this might work out much better than what you think. And I know you've said that on many occasions, that people are surprised and saying, I didn't know if I could retire.
I know. And you only know if you come in. So one of our big conversations is, can you retire now? And most people think they have to continue to work a few more years, Randy, because they need the insurance with the employer. And most of the time, you really don't. You got to put it into the equation. And I'll do income plans. The advisors, we all do income plans here. We're trained to do it. And we already have it baked in. We have the higher cost of your health care until you turn 65. If you're retired at 59 or 61, we have it baked into the income plan so that you don't have to worry about it. But that is one of the main reasons why people will not retire. So if that's one, come see us. If you feel like you have to get to $1 million and you're at 920,000 right now and you can't retire to get to $1 million, come in. Let's see. Do you know how many people that we've been able to retire because they're at 900, or maybe you only have 500, depending on what your inventory is, the assets you saved and all the different buckets, the fixed income coming in, if it's Social Security or pension or cash rents or something or the other. And if you paid off all your debt, allow us to take that opportunity to just look at a snapshot and help make those decisions with you, alongside with you. Because if you really can't retire in 5 years, we're going to show you how to do it maybe in 2 or 3 by making some and doing some transitional things with your assets and maybe saving more and not doing this anymore. You know, it's just a full-blown holistic conversation. And we're all about getting people retired sooner than later. And I will tell you, one of the first check marks are, not interested in status. So anybody who loves reading books, one of my favorite books a client told me to read years ago is The Millionaire Next Door. Great book. And for the young people, every single one of you should be reading it, The Millionaire Next Door. It really helped me become more frugal than I ever was and apply my assets and the revenues in the right locations and right places. When you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. And, I pay off that debt.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey is, right. Pay off that debt before you retire. He wants you to pay it off sooner, but for sure get it paid off before you get into retirement because it makes everything so much easier. You don't need as much cash flow. Therefore, you can invest it and make the most sense out of it. And always make sure you have an emergency fund outside your retirement funds. That is mandated in my office. I talk about it. We like to put a little bit more in cash than the typical advisor because I've seen some of the worst things happen. The hazards wreak havoc upon us, and some people not have the cash flow that they really needed to have.
Well, you may be much better off than you think. And the only way to find out, the only way to do it is to do the math on your retirement. And we do that every day at Zinnia Wealth. Give us a look on our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Hit the gold box there. You'll be on your way. Or call us, 833-368-3680. The appointment is free. I can almost guarantee that you're going to come away with a lot more knowledge out of that meeting than when you walked in about your retirement possibilities. Sharice, that is all the time we have. I'll give you the last word on this one.
Well, again, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to hear our past episodes, you can go right to our podcast. If you have an Apple iPhone, there's a podcast button there. It's purple. Type in Retirement Coffee Talk. You'll see me there. I'll pop right up and listen to past episodes because we're talking about pensions. We're talking about Medicare. We're talking about taxes. We're talking about everything, especially as we're getting hit with it. As usual, live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Sharice Rivers is an investment advisor representative of Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Sharice Rivers is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Any client experiences discussed during this show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Sharice Rivers, NPN Insurance License Number 8718011.